I caught my entitled SIL stealing my credit card at Universal Studios to buy her kids what I got my son for his birthday. Now she's in jail, her kids are with their dad, and my in-laws finally see her true colors. So there I was, standing in the middle of Universal Studios, watching security escort my sister-in-law and her 3 screaming kids out of the park while my husband just shook his head in disbelief. I never thought I'd be the cause of such a public spectacle, but after what happened, I don't feel an ounce of regret. For context, my son Tyler just turned 10 last weekend, and he's been obsessed with Harry Potter for years. We saved up for months to surprise him with a trip to Universal specifically for the Wizarding World area, and we even splurged on the special interactive wand that costs a small fortune. This was the gift of the year, and seeing his face light up when we told him where we were going made every penny worth it. The problem started when my husband's sister, Melissa, found out about our plans. She immediately invited herself and her 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 4, along, saying it would be so fun for the cousins to experience it together. My husband and I weren't thrilled, but we reluctantly agreed they could meet us there, as long as they understood this was Tyler's special day. Big mistake. Huge. From the moment they arrived, an hour late, making us miss our scheduled entry time, it was a disaster. Melissa hadn't bothered to buy tickets in advance, then threw a fit at the ticket counter about the prices. After holding up the line for 15 minutes arguing with the poor cashier, she turned to us and said, "You guys should help pay for these. It's ridiculous to expect me to spend this much just because you wanted to come here." I bit my tongue and we finally made it inside. Tyler was in absolute heaven with his new wand, going from spot to spot making the magical interactions work. That's when her oldest grabbed it out of his hands. "Mom, I want one of these too," he whined, waving Tyler's wand around. Before I could intervene, Melissa said, "Just share it with your cousin. Tyler doesn't need to be selfish on his birthday." My son's eyes welled up with tears as he looked at me helplessly. I stepped in. "Actually, this was Tyler's special birthday gift. Your kids are welcome to get their own wands at the gift shop." Melissa rolled her eyes. "We're family. Family shares. Besides, you guys clearly have money to burn while I'm a single mom on a budget." The day continued with her kids grabbing food off Tyler's plate at lunch, demanding we buy them treats when we got something for Tyler, and Melissa constantly making comments about how someone spoiled rotten. The final straw came when we were in line for the main Harry Potter ride. We had waited almost an hour, and were finally near the front, when Melissa announced she needed to use the bathroom and would be right back. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. We were about to reach the front of the line when Melissa reappeared with all 3 kids holding ice cream cones, souvenir cups, and I couldn't believe my eyes. 3 new interactive wands. "Where did you get those?" I asked, already feeling my blood pressure skyrocket. She smirked. "I found your credit card in your purse when you weren't looking. Don't worry, I only spent like $300. Consider it your contribution to making all the kids happy today, not just your precious Tyler." I completely lost it. I flagged down the nearest employee, who called security. Turns out, taking someone's credit card without permission is considered theft, even if you're family. Melissa screamed that I was overreacting, that families are supposed to help each other, and that I was ruining her kids' day. Security wasn't having it. They escorted her and the kids out, and the park actually refunded the fraudulent purchases to my card. My husband supports me, but his parents have been blowing up my phone saying I humiliated Melissa and traumatized my nieces and nephew. According to them, I should have just let it go and discussed it privately later because family comes first. But honestly, I don't think I did anything wrong. She stole my credit card and was ruining my son's special day with her entitled behavior. Tyler was able to enjoy the rest of his birthday after they left, and he's thanked me multiple times for standing up for him. So Reddit, aita for getting my entitled SIL and her kids kicked out of Universal Studios after she stole my credit card and tried to hijack my son's birthday. Wow, I did not expect this post to blow up like it did. First, thank you all for the supportive comments and validation that I wasn't overreacting. I've been reading everything and wanted to give you guys an update on the nuclear fallout from Theme Park Gate. So the day after we got home, my husband and I woke up to about 30 missed calls from his family. Apparently Melissa had spent the entire evening calling everyone, and I mean everyone, in the family to paint herself as the victim. According to her revised version of events, I abandoned her and the children without transportation and cruelly denied her kids the same experience as their cousin and even claimed I had set her up to look bad. My in-laws showed up unannounced at our door the next morning. My MIL was in tears saying we needed to apologize to Melissa immediately because her kids were traumatized and family forgives family. My Phil was more direct, telling my husband that I had always been difficult and this proved I didn't understand family values. That's when my husband absolutely shocked me. Instead of trying to play peacemaker like he usually does, he completely lost it. He pulled out his phone and showed them the security footage from the theme park that clearly showed Melissa digging through my bag and taking my wallet. We had requested it from park security for potential police report purposes. Then he pulled up the receipt showing she had spent $347.82 on my card. "Is this what family values look like to you?" he asked them. Stealing from your son's wife and ruining your grandson's birthday? My MIL tried to backpedal, saying well, she shouldn't have left her purse unattended. Which just made my husband even angrier. She didn't. Melissa waited until we were focused on Tyler in line and then went through her bag. That's premeditated theft, Mom. Do you understand what could have happened if the park had called actual police instead of just security? They left in a huff, but the drama was just getting started. Melissa began posting vague, victim-why Facebook statuses about toxic family members and those who choose material things over family bonds. Several distant relatives and family friends started messaging us asking what we'd done to poor Melissa. Then my phone pinged with a text from Melissa herself, "Hope you're happy with yourself. The kids are crying every night because they think they'll never see their cousin again. I'll be sending you a therapy bill." I didn't respond, but I did take screenshots. Good thing too, because 2 days later, we got a call from our credit card company about suspicious activity. Someone had attempted to make 3 large online purchases using our card information. Guess who? The credit card company flagged it as fraud since the shipping address didn't match our billing address. Yep, Melissa had apparently written down my entire credit card number and was now trying to use it online to buy. Wait for it, a Nintendo Switch, an iPad, and a $500 Amazon gift card. We filed a police report this time. The officer who took our statement wasn't impressed with the "but we're family" defense, especially after seeing the theme park security footage and the evidence of the attempted online fraud. Melissa was charged with credit card fraud and identity theft. She's currently out on bail and has been ordered to stay away from us. Her court date is next month. The family is completely divided. Half of them think we've gone too far by involving police, while the other half, mostly the younger cousins who've apparently dealt with similar entitled behavior from her, are firmly on our side. Tyler is processing everything remarkably well. We've been honest with him about what's happening without giving him all the gory details, and he's mostly just relieved he doesn't have to share his stuff with his cousins anymore. He did ask if his cousins were going to be okay, which broke my heart a little. We reassured him that they would be fine and none of this was his fault. My husband and I are talking about family therapy to help navigate this mess going forward. We've also decided to take a break from his side of the family gatherings until things settle down. Oh, and we're planning another special day just for Tyler. This time with 0 family members invited. We're thinking a smaller local amusement park where he can just be a kid without all this adult drama hanging over him. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that what should have been a simple birthday celebration turned into criminal charges and a family civil war. Did anyone else have a seemingly small family incident completely explode like this? Melissa's court date finally happened last week. We showed up with all our evidence. The theme park security footage, credit card statements, and those lovely screenshots of her threatening texts. I was nervous as hell walking into the courthouse, especially when I spotted her sitting there with the most dramatic woe is me expression I've ever seen. She even had the audacity to wear what looked like her Sunday church outfit, complete with a pearl necklace. Real classy transformation from the woman who was screaming obscenities at theme park security. The judge wasn't having any of her excuses. When Melissa tried the "we're family and this is just a misunderstanding" line, the judge cut her off and said, "Ma'am, family members don't steal from each other, and credit card fraud isn't a misunderstanding." Then came the bombshell. The prosecutor revealed that this wasn't Melissa's first rodeo. Turns out she has a history of financial fraud. 3 years ago, she pulled a similar stunt with another family member, her cousin, and somehow managed to keep it quiet within the family. They worked out a payment plan that she never actually followed through on. When the judge asked why this wasn't reported to authorities, Melissa blurted out, "Because family handles things privately." The judge just stared at her for a solid 10 seconds before continuing. Not a good look. The verdict? Guilty. She got 2 years probation, mandatory financial counseling, and has to pay full restitution. She also has a restraining order preventing her from contacting us directly. The judge made it very clear that if she violates probation in any way, she's looking at jail time. I actually felt a tiny bit of sympathy watching her face crumple when the verdict came down. That vanished pretty quickly when she turned around and hissed, "Hope you're happy now that you've destroyed my kids' lives," as she brushed past us leaving the courtroom. Speaking of the kids, that's where things get complicated. My husband and I were genuinely worried about them. Despite their behavior at the theme park, they're still just kids being raised by a clearly unstable parent. We reached out to my husband's brother, who isn't close with Melissa but knows her ex, to check on their situation. Good thing we did. The brother contacted their dad, who had no idea what was happening. Apparently, Melissa had been violating their custody agreement for months, not allowing him his court-mandated visitation. When he found out about the criminal charges, he immediately filed for emergency custody. The family court hearing was yesterday. We weren't there, but my brother-in-law attended and filled us in. The judge granted the ex temporary full custody with supervised visitation for Melissa. According to my brother-in-law, she completely lost it in the courtroom, screaming that everyone was conspiring against her and that we had planted evidence to frame her. Now for the really weird part. Last night around midnight, I woke up to the sound of someone pounding on our front door. I nudged my husband awake, and we both crept downstairs, ready to call 911. When we looked through the peephole, we saw my father-in-law standing there, looking absolutely distraught. We opened the door, keeping the chain on, and he immediately started apologizing through tears. Apparently, Melissa had shown up at their house after losing custody, completely unhinged. She ransacked their place looking for money and valuables, screaming that if her own parents had supported her properly, none of this would have happened. When they threatened to call the police, she stole their car and drove off. My in-laws finally called the police, who found her at a motel about 30 miles away. She'd already pawned some of my mother-in-law's jewelry and was trying to buy a bus ticket to another state. She's now in jail for violating probation, theft, and attempting to flee. My father-in-law broke down completely on our doorstep, saying they should have listened to us from the beginning instead of enabling her behavior for years. He admitted this wasn't the first time she'd stolen from family members, but they always covered for her because of her difficult childhood and being a struggling single mom. The whole time he's sobbing on our porch, I'm standing there in my pajamas thinking, is this actually happening right now? My husband just put his arm around his dad and led him inside. We stayed up until 4 a.m. listening to stories of Melissa's pattern of entitled, manipulative behavior stretching back to her teens. It was honestly disturbing to hear how long this had been going on and how many people had been hurt by it. The most shocking revelation? Apparently, she wasn't even a struggling single mom like she always claimed. Her ex had been faithfully paying substantial child support the entire time, which she blew on herself while crying poverty to extract money from relatives. We let my father-in-law sleep in our guest room, and this morning my mother-in-law came over too. They're staying with us until they can get their car back and change their locks. The mood is somber but weirdly peaceful, like everyone's exhaling after holding their breath for years. Tyler is handling everything like a champ. He even made his grandparents pancakes this morning, with supervision. The kid's still working on his cooking skills. When my mother-in-law tried to apologize to him for his ruined birthday, he just shrugged and said, "It's okay, Grandma. Mom fixed it." I nearly burst into tears right there. We're taking him to that local amusement park this weekend. With his grandparents this time. They seem genuinely eager to rebuild their relationship with us, and more importantly, with their grandson. As for Melissa, she's looking at serious jail time now. Her ex has started the process for full permanent custody, and from what we've heard, the kids are actually doing better with the stability of his household. I never imagined a theme park birthday would trigger the collapse of this elaborate house of cards, but here we are. Sometimes standing your ground is exactly what needed to happen, even when it feels like you're the bad guy in the moment. Has anyone else discovered that one confrontation ended up revealing years of family secrets and lies? I'm still processing everything and wondering if there are other skeletons we haven't discovered yet. It's been exactly 6 months since the Universal Studios disaster and 3 months since my last update, so I figured it was time to finally close this chapter of my life. Trust me, this finale doesn't disappoint. I never expected a stolen credit card at a theme park to unravel an entire family's web of lies, but here we are. Life's weird that way. Remember when I mentioned Melissa was in jail for violating probation, stealing from her parents, and trying to flee? Well, during her time behind bars, she apparently had a lot of time to plot her revenge. And boy, did she come up with a doozy. Last month, we started getting strange calls from random people asking about items we'd supposedly listed for sale. Our address was showing up on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and other sites advertising everything from free puppies to adult services. People would show up at our house at all hours expecting God knows what. The most disturbing incident happened when a guy showed up at 11 p.m. claiming we were giving away a free PlayStation 5. When my husband told him there was no PlayStation, the guy got agitated, insisting he'd been messaging with me all day. My husband asked to see the messages, and sure enough, there was a whole conversation with someone using my name and photos. We called the police immediately. They traced the accounts back to, surprise, surprise, Melissa's boyfriend, who was accessing these sites using a contraband phone she somehow got in jail. The messages contained details only a family member would know, which she was feeding him during visits. The police added harassment and cyberstalking charges to Melissa's growing list of offenses. Her boyfriend also got charged as an accomplice. During their investigation, the police discovered something else shocking. Melissa had been running small-scale scams for years, creating fake fundraisers for non-existent medical emergencies and pocketing the money. One officer told us that in his 15 years on the force, he'd rarely seen someone with such a persistent pattern of fraud who wasn't a professional criminal. Usually people learn after the first or second arrest, he said. This is pathological. Meanwhile, her ex-husband finalized full custody of the kids. We were worried about how they'd adjust, but when we finally visited them, with their dad's permission, we were amazed at the transformation. The once bratty kids were now polite, engaged, and actually seemed happy. The oldest even apologized to Tyler about the wand incident without prompting. Dad says we have to earn things, not take them, he explained solemnly. And that family means helping each other, not hurting each other. Out of the mouths of babes, right? The real surprise came from my in-laws. After staying with us for those few days, something fundamentally shifted in our relationship. My mother-in-law called me last week and said, I've spent 20 years making excuses for Melissa because I thought that's what a mother should do. I never realized I was hurting her by not holding her accountable. She got emotional, admitting they'd spent over $50,000 bailing Melissa out of various financial disasters over the years. Money they'd taken from their retirement savings. Money they could have spent on their other children and grandchildren. The guilt was eating her alive. We enabled her until she became a monster, she said. And then we expected everyone else to enable her too. They've started therapy, both as a couple and individually. My father-in-law, who I'd always seen as this stoic, emotionally unavailable man, broke down completely during a family dinner and apologized to my husband for years of favoring Melissa and dismissing his concerns. Turns out he'd always known something was off with his daughter but couldn't face it. Last week, we received a certified letter from Melissa's lawyer. I nearly had a panic attack opening it, expecting some kind of legal threat. Instead, it contained a court-mandated apology letter as part of her plea deal to reduce her sentence. The letter was weird. Technically an apology, but riddled with backhanded comments and justifications. I'm sorry you felt the need to involve authorities in a family matter, and I apologize for believing that family would support each other unconditionally. In my personal favorite, I regret that my financial struggles forced me to seek creative solutions that were misinterpreted as theft. My husband read it, snorted, and tossed it in the shredder. Some people never learn, he said. Melissa's now serving 18 months for the combined charges. Her boyfriend got 6 months. According to family members who still keep in contact with her, she's convinced herself she's the victim of a vast conspiracy orchestrated by me because I was always jealous of her. As for Tyler, this whole experience changed him too. After witnessing the consequences of his aunt's actions, he's become much more aware of boundaries and standing up for himself. Last week, a kid at school tried to take his lunch money, and instead of giving in like he might have before, he marched straight to a teacher and reported it. I remembered what you did at Universal, he told me. You didn't let Aunt Melissa be mean to us, even though it was hard. That moment alone made all the family drama worth it. We finally did get our redo trip to Universal Studios last month. Just the 3 of us. Tyler got to experience everything without any drama, and the park staff, who remembered us from the incident, surprised him with a special behind-the-scenes tour of the Harry Potter area. Watching him cast spells with his wand, face glowing with pure joy, I knew we'd made the right choice standing our ground. The family dynamic has permanently changed. Some relatives still think we went too far pressing charges, but most have come around after learning the full extent of Melissa's behavior. My husband says it's like everyone was under a spell that's finally been broken. The strangest part of all this? I actually feel sorry for Melissa. Imagine going through life believing everyone exists to serve your needs, and that rules don't apply to you. What a hollow, unsatisfying existence that must be. Tyler asked me last night if his aunt would ever change. I told him the truth. Probably not. Some people can't see beyond themselves, and all we can do is maintain our boundaries and focus on the family members who bring love, not chaos, into our lives. So that's it. A birthday trip to Universal Studios somehow turned into a 6-month saga involving credit card fraud, custody battles, jail time, harassment campaigns, family therapy, and ultimately, healing. If you told me a year ago that buying my kid a Harry Potter wand would lead to all this, I'd have laughed in your face. Life's weird that way. Has anyone else had a seemingly minor boundary finally topple a lifetime of family dysfunction? Because sometimes I still can't believe one firm no at a theme park was the pebble that started this avalanche.